Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for over 350 episodes. And I know it's over 365 now, but I like saying 350.
350. Yeah, it's a year's worth of content. You can listen to us every day if you're psychotic enough, and you can do it for a
whole year. One a day, more than one. Well, now it's going to be more than one a day. So, yeah, thank you to all our patrons. And we also all have some thanks to give to our sponsor.
Yeah, of course. First of all, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. And our dude of the week is Justin DS.
Thank you, Justin DS.
If you'd prefer us to say your full name sometimes, by the way, because I realize we have a few Justins, and this Justin might not know that we're talking about him, but you have 3 names, and we shrunk it down for your privacy. But we also have a sponsor to thank. Of course, we're talking about Manscaped, and it is the holidays. It's time for giving gifts, and what better gift than fresh-ass balls?
That's right. If you want to have a holly jolly Christmas on your nutsack, they have the performance package, which comes with the
lawnmower 4.0,
the big one that got put that you're probably well aware of, or at least
this is probably the most notable Manscaped product that everybody kind of like has seen before and done, and it is one of our favorites. I use mine all the time, but the 2 things that we love the most, probably I would say, and the 2 things that we're like the most like openly in favor of being like, you should get this. Of course, we're talking about the Boxers, comfy as hell, the Boxers 2.0, and the Crop Preserver. It's their ball deodorant. It's a permanent fixture in my gym bag. I keep my balls smelling fresh and clean, and you can too.
Keeps you feeling fresh and good for a whole day at a theme park. Let me tell you.
Although I do have some tips. I realize this is maybe too intimate, but you want to let it dry out. Don't like slather it on and pop on your pants, because then it'll just be wet down there, and actually that can suck. You got to let it air dry.
Give a little air drying a little there. And I got to say, honestly, even the lawnmower comes in really clutch, when you're trying to get, that last little bit of fuzz off, your little peach sack. And it helps because there's a light on it too. So
if you're interested in giving the gift of fresh ass balls, please head over to manscaped.com. Use our code YoVG, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That's code YoVG, all caps, at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. Your balls will thank you.
As they jangle down them halls.
I was trying to think of like an under the mistletoe joke to make, but everything just, it got too dirty, got too sexual, And this is a family podcast. I think we've established that over 365 episodes, that this is a very clean, family-oriented fucking podcast. So
fuck that.
I think the temptation is to talk about the Game Awards, but the Game Awards were last week, and we're going to have a side quest talking about it. No, something else popped up that I feel like is right now, it's the conversation is sort of eating away at all creative fields, and that is AI.
And it kind of cropped up a couple months ago, where like people were saying, I guess AI was an AI art, just drawn art.
Yeah, right.
And I think DeviantArt put out a statement they will not accept upload submissions of AI art. I could be wrong about that. But I remember that was kind of like, first I basically saw, because I know artists who draw emotes for me on Twitter and stuff. So like I saw from them kind of talking on Twitter, months ago about the AI art stuff. And then I think it gained a little more traction when I think DeviantArt put out a thing saying like not accepting AI art up as uploads as like a portfolio thing or whatever. And I was like, okay, and here's the thing. From the beginning, I feel we have a moral obligation to stand up and say, no, do not want this. Anything other than just sort of like twiddling your thumbs, like just for like, let's see if I type in these random words and what do I get? But like, I feel we should in no way endorse, normalize, or promote AI created art in any way, shape, or form. And that's just for the drawings, just
Well,
fan art, any art whatsoever. Like, I think we have a moral obligation to say, fuck this.
I do think there's AI generated art, something that has to be said, and I'm sure most people know this. You have to feed it something to learn from. And
Right.
most of the time, the people that are creating AI artists are not artists themselves. So they're just taking art styles that they
Mhm.
like by picking, art that isn't theirs, feeding it
Yeah.
into the program, and then give the program an image because it doesn't create an image on its own. You have to put an image in, and then it'll create
Yeah.
images in that
It
other art
has to, it
style.
has to basically make an algorithm,
Pretty
you know.
murky. It gets pretty weird there.
Yeah, and I don't know. My personal thing is just like AI art is a no for me. Like, just absolutely fucking against this 100%.
AI
And
and machine learning in general is interesting for like iterative processes, trying new models of things, stuff like that.
yeah,
And so I'm not like a total Luddite when it comes to saying like, oh, AI and AI will end the world. No, okay, I'm not saying that. And I'm not
well,
saying machine learning's evil. I just think in situations like this, the only people who benefit from this type of thing are shareholders.
kind of. Although, from what I understand, the way the laws are written now, it's actually against um, using AI. And it's funny because I guarantee this will fucking change copyright law again for the worse. Because apparently, they can't claim copyright ownership on an AI created artwork, right?
No,
So
if it's a
so
corporation
if
doing it, a corporation
so if an
can't.
AI makes a thing, they can't say, "Oh, the character it came up with, we own it," unless they own the software
Right.
that
Yeah, the
made it, right?
corporation, so if the corporation you think of it like a game engine. Just because the corporation used the game engine to create the game doesn't mean that the people who created the game engine have the copyright to the game.
Right. So like that. Well, I've heard that may be why their corporations aren't going to jump on it immediately. But I mean, like whatever disadvantage, they will immediately get overwritten because that's just how lobbying and copyright works in this country.
Well,
Like, and it'll go in their favor real quick.
automation isn't bad. I just think that it needs to be clear that automation has never once created more jobs. Like,
Right.
that's not the point. They bring in robots to have less people working on the thing. Yeah, it'll make game developers so much more productive. That's
Well, yeah.
code
This
word
this
for smaller teams doing way more work.
this is creeped into the gaming sphere. Part of me almost doesn't even want to say, but like you already know, like a person on Twitter had a very long thread about
Yeah.
why he was enthusiastic about AI in gaming development as a game development tool and how it's going. And I don't want to be like I don't want to like talk just about this one guy and his
No, but
things.
it is the same
Um
reasons he's enthusiastic about Web3 and blockchain and whatever crypto he was pushing 6 months ago, and
yeah.
it's all the same reasons. Yeah, he used to be a game developer, so he knows what it's like to be in the trenches, except now he's running a VC fund for indie studios, so he's actually a money man.
Yeah, there's a lot
Weird.
there's a lot to unpack, and it does look like a lot of people are kind of dunking on it already. I even commented on your comment about it.
Yeah,
And
he's gotten a lot of shit.
there's a weird thing where he tried to use he basically remade the movie triangle of quality,
Yeah.
cost, time, and then he put quality in the middle, and then changed the one end to scope, where it's like you have so for people who don't know, in movie industry terms, there's a triangle of that you can never achieve, which
Right.
is quality, cost, and time. You can have two ends of a triangle. You can never have all three. And every movie studio thinks they can achieve all three, but you can't have all three. You can make a movie that's good and you can make it fast, but it's going to cost, but it will cost you.
Costs a lot.
You can make a movie good and you can make it cheap, but it will not be
Not be
made
fast.
quickly.
Yeah.
Will not be made quickly. And you can have a movie that's made fast and cheaply, and it's not good. It's just not going to be good. Very good. Like it's something like just doing. We made it, bum rushed it, and didn't spend any money on it. Good. So, and this guy tried to basically put this into game development terms, and he replaced it with scope, and it's like, we can make all three now with AI generated stuff. We can have games that are made cheaply and quickly, and don't have to compromise on scope, and they'll be high quality, and it's a real pie in the sky bullshit here. But which I thought, first of all, like that's just one thing. His two biggest examples were Red Dead Redemption 2 and Cyberpunk. And my comment to sort of like start from there was, this is ignoring the production management issue that is plaguing the game industry right now.
Right.
Like Cyberpunk did not spend 9 years in development. It spent 3, 4, like actual development. Like they talked about how they didn't actually start making the game for the till well past from the point they announced it. And Rockstar is it's a whole fucking brew, kettle of fish, of project mismanagement and whatever.
Right. And something that it also ignores conveniently is we're having like a white collar watershed moment, and people go like, oh yeah, white collar layoffs are coming in. What's actually coming in is like a mid-level management layoff spree, because we have a project management crisis that's happening across the board. It's not even just in gaming. It's happening all across the economy because we have twice as many managers as you need, and well over half of those managers have no fucking clue what the project actually calls for. So is the AI going to step in and fix the problems that are actually existing in mid-level management at game companies? No. What he's saying is we're going to have smaller teams that are more productive, but the management isn't going to cut down. If the team's super productive, those managers are going to look like winners, so they're going to stick around. It doesn't solve any of the actual problems that happen with Cyberpunk or Red Dead, because both of those things, the root of those problems were the management teams who have nothing to fucking do with the AI.
Yeah, and I think, and we'll just call him John. I think one of the dumbest things he heard, and this is where if I wasn't already off the boat, by this point, in his sixth tweet in his thread, where he said, if you play Diablo or Elden Ring, you spent hours in worlds created with algorithms. 80% of Elden Ring greenery was procedurally generated, which makes me think he has no idea what procedurally generated means. Now, he does say greenery, so is he just saying like the plants were procedural? But even that's not fucking true. Every plant and tree in that game is the same in every single copy of that game that everyone plays. It's not procedurally generated. Procedurally generated means it generates it uniquely every time you proceed to load the game.
Right.
Elden Ring is a set map. It is a set design map. A human being sat down and designed the map of the game and the greenery, and it is the same in everyone's version of the game. Like I'm kind of like a little confused as like what the fuck he's talking about. Maybe he means that they hit copy paste, like 80% of the grass is the same texture. Duh.
Right. Yeah. No, every blade is hand drawn.
In which case, duh, but that's
Yeah.
still not procedurally generated. That's just reusing an asset. There's a lot of reused assets in Elden Ring. There's a ton of them. It's a big fucking game. There's a lot of reused assets. There's only so many different ways you can make a rock look like a rock.
I'm not
or,
really,
or a tomb or whatever.
He has a follow-up thread, and so as to not be bullying on this guy, because he may genuinely be enthusiastic about this, and be just like paving the way to hell out of enthusiasm. But he has a follow-up thread where he seems like he is trying to, in good faith, address people's concerns that he's getting shit on with. And so if you know what thread we're talking about, again, I'm not trying to get anybody to lay on this guy, but if you know what thread we're talking about, hop over and read the follow-up thread. I think he's wrong still. I just appreciate that he is actually trying to make an argument. He didn't just say this shit and then like la-di-da off to jerk off to the next Web3 thing.
And I think there is not giving credence to him, but like games are getting more expensive and more costly, and like costs are spiraling out of control for game development budgets. Like
Right.
manpower, man hours. I'm sorry if that's a sexist term. I don't even know anymore. You get what I
Right,
mean,
but
though.
they are also making record profits. So is it really like the budgets are spiraling out of control? Are the costs actually spiraling out of control? Or are they making more money than they've ever made ever?
Ta-da!
The other thing that I want to get at is he goes like, it'll be infinitely cheaper to make games, but they'll still be $70, right, John? Because you're not going to sell a game for less than $70, even though it was infinitely cheaper to make, right, John? You're going to want to make as much profit as possible, which again links back to the fact that you're going to fire 3/4 of your dev team and then be like, you guys are more productive now. You can do all the work because AI, right? Right? It's not like over half the time you spend working with an AI is fixing all the shit the AI gets wrong. Anybody that's ever worked in like on the back end of chat with those chat programs knows that, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's the thing is like,
Anybody who's ever used AI transcoding for like for captions and shit, auto generated captions, that accuracy level, but now in game design developers are already having to duct tape shit together to get it out the door. You think they're going to be like, oh, great. Yeah, I pumped this out in a week instead of 12 weeks, but now I still have to spend the next 12 weeks fixing everything. Like it doesn't, yeah. And I'm not saying that that can't be something that they work on and it becomes
mhm.
perfect or whatever. It's just like he's his argument is based on the idea that only the good things from it will happen. And that if only the good things happen, you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about the bad things that completely overshadow all those good things if even one of them happen.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing too is like let's be real about it. I mean, granted, this is cynical, whatever the fuck, but like, is Sony and Microsoft ever going to go back to $60 games or $50 games?
No, no, never. The price goes up, the price never goes down.
If they cut their workforce in half, if they cut their workforce in a fourth, you
Shareholders will
know,
love it.
like the way this guy is excitedly talking about, drastically reducing, the cost, of a development team. It's like, yeah, like a small development team can make a Red Dead game. Okay, great. If Rockstar made Red Dead 3 with AI and a fourth of the people, is Rockstar going to charge a fourth of the price for the game because it only took a fourth of the people? No, fuck no.
No, of course not. Like
It's a $70 game.
they'll be geniuses to shareholders. Shareholders will be like, "That's amazing. That's the best thing ever." They'll literally cry tears of joy into their piles of money, which is
And I
fine.
and
Be
I know
happy
what
as a
the
shareholder, but
and I can see the argument already because it'll be that, okay, yes, they're still charged the same amount. You're still getting the same great experience, allegedly. And here's the best thing, because they'll be having so much more extra money, the publisher will be able to pay the developers a higher salary
right.
because they now have so much extra money now. They'll trickle down to the developers, won't it?
Yeah, no, I
Reaganomics. Because that
someone
fucking worked 40 years ago.
someone pointed out the like in that thread, if I remember correctly, someone was just all like, just a reminder that the Luddites were the good guys. And it reminded me like not a lot of people know who the Luddites were and where that term comes from. And so I'll share the story. I don't know if you know it.
No.
So the term Luddite means someone who's anti-technology, anti-progress. It's used derogatorily all the time. But what the Luddites actually were is they were a guild of weavers who were against the automation of weaving blankets, cloths, whatever,
Right.
because everywhere that had automated cut weavers' incomes down to like a tenth of what they were making before. No one could live on it. And so, yeah, cloth, and in some cases, high quality cloth, um, skyrocketed. Now everybody could own as many clothes as they wanted, um, was the argument. But the way the Luddites actually had some really good points. And so the way the factory workers eventually won is they made a really good argument and killed them all. They killed all of the Luddites. The Luddites all died. That's what happened to the Luddites.
It kind of
They
sounds a
didn't
lot
lose
like
the
union
argument. They just got
busting.
fucking shot. They literally were killed, and then their name became derogatorily used in popular culture by the winners. So being like, "Oh, you're a Luddite,"
for the William Hearsts of their time, to make sure that we use this editorially as a derogatory term.
Another thing that the Luddites were against is that the number one source of factory employment was children. That was another big complaint of those anti-progress fuckers. So, I'm just saying automation has never once been a net good for the people working in the industry. Now, granted, you could make arguments that automation is a net good for, say, society at large in terms of progress.
Here's the thing, and I do think
Economic.
I do think there is a sort of there is a Star Trekian like future that is very much automated. If we get to a point where
Sure,
not
then you
just
get into
farming,
UBIs and
not
all.
just farming, but like planting. I mean, like you just have massive machine AIs constantly planting, tilling, growing crops, doing just making food, right? Just growing food.
Sure.
I think that's a good thing because the point is that there's with 8 billion people on the planet, and there's not enough food to feed everyone on the planet. And if AI automation through farming could solve that crisis, bring it on.
There is, in fact, plenty of food to feed everyone on the planet. Most governments burn most of it in order to
That
control
is
the price
also
of food.
that is also true, but you get my point, right? Like if you had a thing where like okay, you can have all these AI built, homes and we can give shelter and food to everyone on the planet. No one has to worry about this because we just send some robots out to do it. Awesome.
Do you know why ethanol is in fuels? Corn-based fuel.
Oh yeah. There's this whole crazy like tax thing, basically like tax funding ethanol
So
to be grown and or
uh,
corn to be grown and there's some crazy weird shit if you look into like corn.
yeah. So
Um,
in the Great Depression, the government subsidized farmers, specifically small farmers of grains, to basically paid them to grow grain, even if they couldn't take it to market.
yeah,
The government would buy the grain. Well, businesses just after the Great Depression realized that this was a thing. So they started buying up all the farms and making shitloads of money based on the subsidies because they knew that even if they couldn't sell it, the government had to buy
had
it.
to
And
right.
then
So
when
they're
the government
basically
tried
like
to get
paying
rid
to
of
get
this,
rid of it.
when the government tried to get rid of this obvious fiasco, Monsanto and other companies like that sued the government and lobbied to make it law that they could not get rid of food subsidies, and they won. So, uh, grains are, I think, like the second or third most subsidized thing in the country after oil.
Yeah.
Nuts. We live in a fucking weird
No,
world, is all
almonds.
I'm getting at. Yeah, almonds. Because water is super subsidized. So the only reason almonds
You
are,
saw where I was going there.
yeah, the only reason almonds are affordable is because water is super subsidized. If water wasn't subsidized and farmers had to figure out how to get water to their crops and shit, almonds would be super expensive because they just eat water.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Same with
So,
alfalfa.
but yeah, like I'm not against AI in general because it's just the sort of ugly truth that all empires are built on the backs of someone, a lot of a lot of backs of a lot of other people, so that a lucky smaller can stand on it. And I'm always kind of in the mindset of like be real great if an empire can be supported on the backs of a robot rather than um rather than on some other human, right? Which of course, oh, what if the robots rise up, Matrix and all that bullshit and whatever. But
Well, then there will be literal tens of billions of us to fight back.
well, then we literally create Horizon, Zero Dawn, more or less. But yeah, I'm not. I don't hate AI in general, but like I think what we're talking about when we're bringing it back to gaming and to artwork, this is luxury. This is non-essential. This is art. We can have that debate about our games are whatever. This is an artistic medium. And I don't
Well,
think
all entertainment is art, and not all art is entertainment.
right. Well, I don't think, and I'm all for having better tools for people to make what they want to make, but when it comes to especially the artistic parts of video games, I don't think I don't think we should have AI. I think we should not want that. And like you said, no one gained more jobs from AI outsourcing it.
Well, so he uses this example in an argument that at first seems really smart, and then you give it a little bit of thought, and you're like, he doesn't know how game development works. He says he's a game developer, but he doesn't
Yeah.
know how it works. Where he goes like, yeah, we spend less time making cobblestones and more time building the world. AI will create the cobblestones, each individual cobblestone. I was like, yeah, but game devs don't create each individual cobblestone. That's where the copy paste thing comes from.
Yeah.
Like you design 2 or 3 different cobblestones, and then maybe you build a road out of it. Like you're not making each of the million cobblestones in the city
Yeah.
yourself. Like it's not
Exactly.
um I get what he's saying, right? You can now have this thing that does the I guess in a sense bitch work, writing out all the copy paste stuff. You don't have to worry about that shit. You just draw a line and it does it for you. Um but then again, and this is a different comment that I saw, and that person also identified as a dev. I don't know that guy, but it was an interesting rebuttal where the guy was like, "Yeah, you just make comments like, well, that's all they do now, dude. Like that's what a game engine does.
Yeah.
Your game engine does has all the bitch work built so that you can then just come in and start adding in the creative part.
Yeah.
And an AI isn't going to make a game engine. Now, granted, having I guess, more involved where it's like, oh, you have an AI that's a learning AI, so you don't have to, I don't know, create enemy AIs ever again. I guess that's a thing, but that's already sort of a thing,
Already
right?
sort of a thing. And they've been dabbling around with like AI learning gamer patterns in games. They've been dicking around in that for like 20
Right.
years. Um,
So I'm not sure what obviously there is a benefit of AI coming into gaming. It's just not the benefit he's trying to sell.
yeah, and that's the thing is that like it's better, I think, when you do have someone doing copy paste or like okay we're going to build a road here, fill it in with this, fill it in with an art like with cobblestone RNG the cobblestone sizes and designs, and it just like fills in the road, right? Cool. Then you're going to look it over and you give it like a once over and be like, okay, do I like it, do I not like it, should I change, should I tweak some stuff, whatever. Tighten up the graphics on level 3 shit, but
Yeah.
but I think more importantly though, it's like he's talking about like the whole point of this solution, more or less. It sounds like a sales pitch. And I think that's what
Right.
kind of like is what's really driving people away, from his side of the argument, because it sounds like a sales pitch. And really, at the end of the day, what is the thing? That's the problem here. Problem here is again, it all just goes back to project management. If you knew before you started development on the game how many areas were going to be in the game, and how many, generally speaking, how many quest lines are we going to put in there, and everything about it, like, okay, game will have 10 areas, we'll have these people, it takes about this much time to fully design and create an area, and then the level design team can then go to the next area, and then they'll do that. So it's like it's going to take them a month to make this area, and then after that they'll do the next area and the next area. And so basically, and in 10 months we'll have a fully finished game world or whatever. And then you have other departments who are like, okay, how long does it take you to fill out all the things you need to fill out for one area? It takes, a month or whatever. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Like plan it out. Because on that stupid triangle, he talks about like, oh, scope. They have to like reduce their scope. I'm like, Scope creep is a term in the game industry where during development they basically come up with an idea and then they want to like implement it and implement, or worse, a fucking PR guy promises something in an interview that's not planned to be in the game. Now it has to be put in the game. There's a great story about 50 Cent Blood on the Sand, where they showed him an early build of the game, and 50 wanted his, he has his son come in to play the game with him. And his son's like, I want a helicopter level. That'd be really cool. Like, you hear that, boys? Helicopter levels in the game. So like, they're like, we don't have any fucking scripting for a helicopter flying segment. So like they had to cobble together, something using, part of their turret sequence thing for a helicopter. So like, because 50 Cent's kid wanted a helicopter level in Blood on the Sand. So now we have to we have to find a way to add a helicopter level when we don't have any scripting for a flying vehicle.
It's a variation on mission creep, which I'm sure is still a military term to this day, but my grandfather would talk about it from like the Korean War, where he would be like, mission creep is when an officer who is, maybe they're competent or whatever, will be like, oh, I want everybody here at 6 a.m., on the dot. And then they say that to their second in command. And their second command comes in and he says, I want everyone there at 5:45 just to make sure nobody's late. And then that guy comes out and he's the platoon sergeant. He goes, everybody's going to be here at 5:30 on the dot so that nobody's late for the 5:45 order I got, not knowing that, 6 o'clock is actually the time. Anyway, the point is it comes down and all of a sudden the mission's starting at 4 a.m. and everybody's standing there for 2 hours waiting because some asshole said that I want everyone there on the dot. Or like another officer comes in and goes, oh yeah, we're going to do this raid. We're also going to capture and hold this over there. Totally different mission, totally different champ. But now we got to figure out how to make that work with the tools we're using for this thing. My grandfather used to like use that mission creep idea all the time because he hung doors. He did all sorts of carpentry, but like at the end of his career, he was a specialist in hanging doors. And sometimes he'd be like really good at hanging doors, getting like shitloads of doors hung. And somebody would be like, hey, could you also stop and go do this other general carpentry thing? And my grandfather would always be like, fuck no, I hang doors. I'm good at hanging doors. That's why I'm hanging doors.
It kind of reminds me of it's like in the movie studios where like there's the guy who drives the truck and that is his job.
Yeah.
And he will not help you with grip work. He will not take shit off the truck. He will not put shit on the truck.
Yeah.
He will not go help you hang lights or whatever. His job is to drive the truck and he will not fucking do anything else. And there's actually good reason for that.
Well, there's insurance reasons and union reasons for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, basically like, if you're probably union is I'm a truck driver, you are not getting roped into doing a shit ton of manual labor you are not being paid for, kind of thing. So, so it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, where it's just kind of like, no, I hang doors. I'm not doing anything else for you.
Never ask a grip to move a light. Like the three things you should never ask a grip to do is wear pants on a cold day, or move a light, or touch an electrical cable. They're not going to do it. Those men, they wear shorts and they do not touch electrical equipment.
And we almost saw firsthand why when we were making a sysme when a light almost fell on someone we know.
It almost fell on me.
You and Wellesley.
Yeah. Well, I was a one-man band on that, so there was
everyone wore many hats. But yeah, like scope creep, that's a big thing in games, and it's a big problem, and it's still a big problem because
it's a big problem everywhere, but especially in tech, I feel like, because most of the time, the further you get up in like corporate world, my understanding is the less you're physically doing. You're in more meetings and your fingers are in more pies, but you're not actually doing. Most of the time you're answering a lot of emails and trying to keep people on track.
And that's the thing is the guy who's sitting there making the level or whatever, the level designer, the scenario designer, the combat designer, he's not sitting there thinking about, oh, what if I added this fucking thing, this feature into the game that no one discussed previously, but someone in mid management goes, we should have this, or worse, and especially in gaming, someone from focus testing or someone from analytics someone comes in and says, this feature is really hot in the game, or this feature made a lot of money. We need to implement this thing because this other product which came out, as we started, we had no idea. Like, we started development on this game, and then this game just came out, and this was successful. So now we got to implement this game's feature, which we hadn't seen before. No one had seen before because it's new. Now we got to put it in our game, and we have no fucking like easy way of doing that. So again, then it just becomes scope creep.
Right.
So it's like everything just creeps up. More features, bigger, like more add-ons, more worlds, more microtransactions. And so and I think, to me personally, because I mean, again, I'm not a game developer. I've been in game development. I've been in studios. I've been there. I've been on the ground floor. And to me, I think that's probably, luckily nothing I've been in has ever like hit like some nasty scope creep. Usually it's just tight deadlines.
Yeah.
But to me, it just seems like it looks like this is kind of what hit Cyberpunk. It's what hit, because they had talked about, and they had showed features and stuff the character could do, like moves, AI stuff, like not game AI, but I mean like with the hacking stuff and all this weird shit that was like kind of like promised, put in a presentation trailer, but not
right, and just never actually materialized. Right.
There was no way to fucking do it in the time they had. So it's kind of one of those things where it just keeps coming back to me. I'm like, figure out what your game's gonna be before you fucking write a single line of code, and then just stick with it. And if something comes out and it's like, well, this was super big, great, save it for the next game. Like, fine, whatever, put it for the next, unless it becomes something that's like, oh, like someone figured out a quality of life thing because your game is so similar to something else already, and it's like someone solved a problem you already had. I mean, I remember like hearing about like the first Dead Space, and it was in development, and then RE4 came out, and then they went, oh no, this is the shit. And
right.
like the whole game changed. They're like, whatever we were kind of thinking of doing, fuck it. RE4 figured out exactly how we want our survival horror combat to look and feel like. And that's a dangerous thing, because it's almost like advocating for people to make drastic changes mid-development. But I'm not sure how far along the original Dead Space was, and to my knowledge, it wasn't that far into development when RE4 came out, and they're like, oh, that's it, that's what we want to do.
Oh, see, I thought that was about their like camera placement.
Pretty much. Well, I am talking about that.
Right, like they just didn't know. They didn't know where to put the camera to maximize, and so when RE4 came out, they were like, ah, yes, and then they switched to tank controls, because isn't Dead Space 1 tank controls?
More or less, yeah.
And that's why he stomps and moves super slow everywhere.
But it was in RE4 is not even like, it's not even a super different, because it's using tank controls of RE1 and 2. All they did was just put the camera over here. Environment's fully 3D now, so there's like, just put the camera over here. That's it, done.
Yeah, and tank controls aren't terrible when you're not on fixed fucking camera angles. It's just
because you're always going forward.
Yeah, tank controls suck nuts. I'm just saying they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they don't suck nearly as bad as fixed camera angles.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say. I feel like we've flogged that horse to death.
Well, sure, but I mean, like, yeah. I don't. This AI, this whole idea of AI is going to save so much time. It's going to do this. If you did do it, really, all it's going to do is just remove jobs. If it worked, but again, like, games would come out faster if you stuck to your guns and you had a good solid vision for the game the minute you made the game, and your game wasn't a fucking reaction, a marketplace reaction to some other game.
And I think something that needs to definitely be a focus, especially about this one argument, the guy making that argument is a VC guy. Right, he's investing. What is he saying? Like, oh, AI is going to be the future, and we're going to put our money towards studios that use AI. Why is he saying that? As a blockchain Web3, he's doing that because he thinks that AI in the end is going to make things way cheaper, which means that the profit margin is going to be way bigger, which is what VCs care about. Part of the reason why the tech bubble's bursting right now and why there's so many zombie companies out there, zombie company being a company that, for all intents and purposes, looks like it's operating, but is basically dead and has never turned a profit, is that VCs don't actually care about your company being good. VCs care about maximizing how much money they'll make when your company goes public, or ideally, in their mind, gets bought by a competitor.
Yeah, the whole point. You made this company to get bought.
Right. So you may have an opportunity to go public with a product that works great, but your VC who has all your funding says, no, we own 53% of your company, 55% of your company, whatever. You're not doing it. And you're all like, yeah, but my company will survive. And they go, yeah, but we're going to hold out for a bigger offer. And that offer never comes down the pipeline. You get shut down. The VC writes you off as a loss. Who gives a shit? They move on. They don't care because it's better for them to bet on you being $1 billion company instead of a $500 million company. Even though 500 million would have made you, surviving, profitable company, and you could have continued on as a company. You could have been a perfectly good company. They don't give a shit. They're going to hold out for $1 billion, and if it doesn't happen, oh well, it was a bet. VC guys
chip on my roulette table.
Right. And I cannot stress this enough. Granted, it's anecdotal and I've only met a few of them, but all VCs I know of operate this way. All VC guys look at it this way. They're looking for the $1 billion bet. They don't give a shit how pie in the sky it is, as long as they think they can sell it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this guy is that way. I don't know this guy. He's probably a perfectly decent dude. I'm just saying that in my experience, he doesn't give a shit if it means that devs lose all their, that loads 75% of devs no longer work. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't mean anything to him.
And I think if you want to, get into it, like, what is the biggest, highest production value besides Rockstar? And Rockstar's, it's well documented how fucking shittily run Rockstar is. Let's look at God of War. The big critical darling for this year. I like the game a lot.
Yeah,
but this is the sequel to the 2018 game. And this game was already delayed a whole fucking calendar year. It was supposed to be a 2021 game, and it got intentionally pushed and intentionally was put on cross-platform, delayed a whole year. And it's still only 4 years after the last game. And it's a long game.
right.
It is not a short game by any means. And it's full of many brand new areas and assets and whatever. It's not an asset flip of a game. Like, there's a couple things that are kind of the same, but it's also a game following a similar storyline. And that took 4 years, and that's with a year delay. They were originally banking on 3, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would argue that they didn't do a great job, though.
Right. So it's like, this was a huge game that took 4 years to make with COVID, like through like from like started before and went through all through COVID and got delayed, and it still came out just 4 years exactly within the last game. Horizon was 5 years to a T. Similar ass thing where they were like, they wanted to get it out within 4 and it just took 5 or whatever, but it's still 5 years, going from a very big game on PS4 to another very big game on PS5 and PS4. And that is also, and in between there was a very big DLC campaign for Horizon 1. Right?
Yeah.
So, and those are very, very, very big budget, big things. And I was like, oh, it's a first party studio, and they have Sony, money to throw behind it. And they have, so many people they can pull to hire, right? Okay, but Nintendo Monolith do the same thing on a way smaller scale. They don't make small games. They make big games. They make them every 2 years. My whole thing here is that, like, our problem is not that games take too long to make, cost too much to make. Our problem is that we have way too many fucking people gumming up the goddamn works here.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish we could know, but we don't. And I don't know if you saw, it's kind of a little bit of a separate topic, but there was the editor for Xbox at IGN. He had this huge scathing article come out that, a day or two after the Game Awards, because Microsoft had nothing to show or say. And was it Larry Herb or someone was like, we have plenty to show. We have lots of exciting announcements to talk about coming up soon. And it's like, well, why the fuck didn't you talk about the Game Awards?
Right.
And the crux of his argument was basically that, like, Phil, as from an insider industry perspective, I'd give him like an A grade. But as far as like game releases, even, Phil's kind of gotten a D, and he's dangerous close to an F. Like going a whole fucking year without a first party release. Technically, they had that one tiny project by Obsidian Pentiment, which apparently is very good.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's that game that looks like Renaissance era artwork. The whole game.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. You'd think you'd be Pentiment. You'd be fooled into thinking it was an indie game, but no, it's from Obsidian, a major first party studio, that made KOTOR 2 and Outer Worlds.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even realize that had come out yet, though.
It just came out. It came out like a month or two ago.
Huh.
It's pretty recent, but it's like for the most part, though, yeah, they had no first party game. They went a whole fucking calendar year without a first party game from Xbox, and then their last actual first party release was Halo Infinite. And we've talked about that to death. So basically, this I think it was Ryan McCarthy. I don't know if that was who it was, but there was someone from IGN, Xbox, who basically was just saying, like, Microsoft is dropping the ball hard on gaming, and they should have at least talked about what's going on. Show us some goodwill. You've bought these studios, you bought them years ago. We should be showing something. And I really wish we could know what's going on, because I don't think it's a leap of logic, even as just sort of outsiders, people just sitting here doing a podcast, to say something is fucking going wrong with project management at Microsoft Game Studios. Something is going really fucking wrong. And it's not one game, it's like every fucking game.
Yeah, at a company that size, I wonder how much bureaucracy there is. We talk about Nintendo, right? Having like everybody has veto power on shit. Like, how much of that is true at Microsoft too?
Well, when we talk about veto power with Nintendo, I'm talking mostly about like hardware, or more like, internet related decisions or whatever like that. There is separate people who green light game development, like the old dinosaurs with veto power. They're not sitting there personally looking at every project pitch coming from internally at Nintendo and saying yes or no. That's someone else to kind of decide. They
just hear some shit and then put in their feedback.
So I can say this with Nintendo is like, they absolutely do make people, their own studios, they have to pitch to Nintendo. Nintendo has to say yes or no. And there has been some expressed frustration a little bit with that as well. But once they greenlight it, from what I understand, once Nintendo greenlights a project, they don't necessarily get in the way of that project. Like, it's kind of like, okay, you can do this, go do your thing. And like from recently with Bayonetta 3 is like, Nintendo's like, okay, yes, let's do a Bayo 3. And then after they lost their director, and then like in some years it started to wear on, Nintendo went, what's the problem here? And they saw the state the game was in. They're like, all right, cut out the open world thing. It's not working. Right. They're just like, cut it into level, like, chop it into levels. Like, the open world thing is not going to work. Which, good on Nintendo for basically sitting there saying, like, guys, like, our hardware can't do this. Like, scale back. Like, don't cancel it. Just guys, it's not going to work out. Which says more about like their fucking aging dinosaur hardware than anything. But like, from what I understand, and from what I've talked to like X-Rare people and whatever, Nintendo, once they had greenlit a game, they didn't really get involved. They didn't get involved that much.
Yeah, they checked
If
in, found out if there's problems.
honestly, the worst part is when you're working with Miyamoto directly on a game because that guy can have some weird fucking ideas.
Well, judging by how he come up with all of his concepts for Mario by shit in his backyard.
Well, there's a lot of yeah. I went hiking. I did this. I got into gardening, so I made Pikmin. I liked hiking, so I
Right.
made Zelda. I liked swimming or something like that, and like Nintendogs was like another thing like that.
Right. I forgot he was involved in Nintendogs.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um and the weird thing is like AI is never going to replace shit like that. Like there's always going to be
yeah.
that at least one person who has to be the creative lead on something. Um what
I
I
mean,
do
like,
think
in what part of AI would you want doing game development too? I think that's the ultimate big question here. What part of game development do you want AI to be in charge of?
well clearly what he's sa- clearly what they push towards with AI is replacing visual artists. So it's not necessarily the coders. It would be like the concept artists or the character artists and stuff like that.
It really feels like the last person you should be replacing.
That's what I'm saying. They're like you'll just get loads of derivative samey bullshit. Just
No.
because you have look, you have 1,000 different options for this person for this character, and they're all the goddamn same. Like it doesn't make any sense to remove the human element from any creative pursuit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Uh, I there's plenty of arguments you could make that removing human input will make for a cleaner, less fucked up game. I guess you could make those arguments. I don't agree because anybody that's again worked with AI generated anything knows that it is filled with shit you've got to correct.
How do you tell an AI that you don't like? I don't like the way this character model looks. Is there any way you can make them look hotter or something like that? Like imagine trying to do that where it's like, here's the
Well,
AI
no, that
created,
what they're gonna do is
character. Can we make it look sexier?
they're gonna take pictures of real women or real men and feed it into the AI to get the look they want. And then you get into this murky water of like the AI is not actually creating shit. It's just amalgamating all the inputs you gave to like pump out this, whatever the fuck this is. And granted, you could say that that would be cool from an environment standpoint, right? Like, oh, we're going to pump in a bunch of pictures of places we really love for what we want this part of the level to look like. And the AI is going to give us a mock up of a level and stuff. And then devs will go in and do the fine tuning. That still removes sometimes, in some cases, dozens of people from the team.
Yeah. And
And
then
maybe it
and
saves you
then it's
time.
just weird
Maybe.
work too because like okay, it's this very pretty level, but it is like a disaster to move around in. So it's
Right.
like we had to literally just go in and just like it's like giving a 4-year-old a sculptor's tool for clay, and then it's like, all right, Dad, it's a it's a dog, and you're like,
Yes,
all
it is.
right. Yes, it is. Now let me actually, give it a tail and legs and whatever.
Well, it reminds me of, did you ever do any, like, drawing or anything like that? Any drawing classes or any,
Yeah, but I'm terrible at it.
so I did, fun fact, some Andrew lore, when I was a kid, all the way up until I was, like, a sophomore in high school, I wanted to be a cartoonist,
Mm.
and so I drew, like, a lot, specifically cartoons, like Calvin and Hobbes style, that
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
cartoon. I drew a lot. Um, I haven't touched a pen in 15 or 16 years or anything like that, like in terms for drawing. So I'm probably crap at it now, but I used to do it a lot. And one of those, like, there was a small cartoon book that I had, like 10 pages of how to draw cartoons was the first
Mhm.
thing and one of the things is like, oh, draw any random shape and then try to turn it into a character.
Yeah, this is some bullshit. Like, draw an owl, draw 2 circles, now draw the rest of the fucking owl.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but like they would be like, "Oh, just do like a squiggle. It has to be a shape. It can't be like just a random nonsense zigzag or anything. Like draw any kind of shape and then try to turn it into a character." And it's like, yeah, it's cool for like trying to learn to see characters in odd shapes. That's all it is that's going to be like working with AI. Every day you're going to be a dev that logs in and has to turn whatever the fuck squiggly line the AI pumped out into something that works. And it's going to be just as much work, except now, hey, the AI did the grunt work and you no longer have your buddy
Yeah.
Ted.
I mean, to shit on it a little more, because why not?
Because fuck AI generated art. That's all I'm saying.
Like, to shit on Breath of the Wild a little bit, like, it was discovered not right away, but like it was discovered that for the most part, all the NPCs in the game are based off of me generators. Um, they based someone like pointed it out, and they looked at, oh yeah, that's right. And I don't think it's not procedurally generated. They just, for every AI, they fucking hit the randomizer button on the me maker and went, cool, that's your stable hand. Elf ears, goodbye. Boom, elf ears, put it on this body, good.
Right.
All the heads, all the faces, were made in me maker.
God.
So nobody actually, for the NPCs in Breath of the Wild, no one actually sat down and modeled, like, made a software thing for, obviously there's probably hundreds of NPCs in Breath of the Wild. Well, maybe, I don't know. The game is surprisingly empty for what it is, but nobody sat there and made like 100 NPCs or whatever. They literally went to the me maker and just said, "This is we're gonna like tweak it a little bit, and then that's gonna be how we make all the faces for all the non-essential, non-story characters in the game."
That's sort of depressing, but I guess ingenious.
At least for the Hylians. Obviously, the Rito and the Zoras are fish and birds, and so it's like Gorons are that. So like obviously they're different, of course. But I'm talking about like all the Hylians. So I guess it's not even maybe not even 100. Maybe it's around there. But yeah, yeah. That's what Breath of the Wild did, and it's like that's the kind of shit an AI could do. And it's like, could you imagine almost if like every single game started to do that, where like every character was based off of more or less just, we just took the fucking me maker or the Xbox avatars and just populated our world with them. And every game started to do this. It's like every open world game was just filled with the same
randomly
fucking
generated
the
faces,
same fucking NPCs, the same style of NPCs or whatever. That would get old real goddamn quick.
Real quick, yeah. I guess so. Like, as a question, because I know we have game devs that listen to the podcast. If you actually see a good argument or a good faith reason why AI would actually help you do your job, definitely comment. Tweet me directly or comment on the YouTube version of this, or if you're a patron, comment Patreon, because honestly, in good faith, if I'm wrong here, sure, I'd like to know. I've never seen AI enter a creative space and not totally wreck it or rip off real artists. I also don't like the idea that they go like, oh, it's an AI artist. Is it? Is it an artist?
Yeah,
It's
right.
just a fucking computer program. It's, whatever. Yeah, if I'm wrong and you have a good argument, I am open to it. I so far all the arguments seem like bullshit to me.
Yeah, I think that the real crux of it is just like all the arguments just seem like, okay, this is just it's going to take away jobs
and make me more money.
It's not going to lower the cost of the games, because why the fuck would it? You live in a complete fucking fantasy land if you think somehow there was something that drastically reduced the cost of game development. You live in a fantasy land if a game still looked like close enough to a $70 game. You're out of your mind if you think they'd ever lower the price because it costs less to make. So it's just going to take away jobs. It's going to keep games. They're just going to make the publisher more money.
If it doesn't take away jobs, it at the very least is going to cut developer pay significantly.
Yeah, there's that too, and I personally don't see any benefit from coming from having an algorithm either create your world or create your character. And again, it is a completely ignoring the actual problem of project management.
Right.
This wouldn't, like, you look at God of War, look at Horizon, look at Monolith Soft, look at those games, look at their schedule, look at their releases, and then just sit there and look at the size and scope of their games and sit there and fucking tell me, oh well, all games cost too much, take too long to make. No,
Right.
they just need they need better direction. They need better management, not more management, better management.
Yeah, that is, but it's a key difference.
It's a
Sometimes
huge
people
difference.
hear better and they go, "We need more managers."
No, it's work smarter, not harder.
But as always, we have some patrons to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Our producers for this episode are Scrunami, Kroy35, Hyper Viper 89, Ziggy Z, and Online Persona. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.